Hello there folks, Mediocre Painter here, Mr. K, and I am doing YouTube videos to get you into the wargaming hobby because I've made the mistakes so you don't have to. And today I'm going to talk about my first unboxing of this little beauty right here, or rather is another big beauty called Blackstone Fortress. This is a Warhammer Quest game, which back in the day was kind of a role-play type game. There was a board game by Games Workshop, and this is basically a 40k version of that, and it's built around adventurers having to navigate their way around a mysterious fortress of a Blackstone nature and look for basically fancy tech, and that's basically there via alien races and everything. So this is a Games Workshop product, unsurprisingly, since it's 40k, and it retails for about £90 I think, but if you look around you can get it for about 75 or something along those sorts of lines. I think I paid 76. And if we have a look at what we get inside, I always like to have a bit of peruse about what's inside of these things. Basically, we're getting everything we need to play the game, which is always nice. We get a rules booklet, a background booklet, combat booklet, precipice booklet, data sheet, board tiles, cards, counters, markers and dice. And then we basically have 44 Citadel miniatures. And these are exclusive to this set at this particular moment in time, and I'm assuming the adventurers will probably remain exclusive to this set as well. There are 40k rules for the adventurers in the box, as well as the bad guys as well, shall we say, which is really cool. So whenever I look at these sorts of things, I always think to myself, okay, I'm buying this box game, it's £75, I'm getting 44 miniatures, and I always think to myself, well, okay, what's that per mini? So per mini we're looking at less than £2 a mini here, because £2 a mini would be £88. So if you're paying about £75 for this, then you're looking £1.75, £1.80 for each miniature, which for Citadel miniatures of this high quality is a really very good deal. And if we look at other good deals that Games Workshop have, like the First Strike starter set for 40k, for example, I think you get 6 Primaris from Marines in there, 3 Death Guard and 6 Poxwalkers. So effectively 15 miniatures, and that can be had for about £22. So so that's £150 or so a miniature. So that's bargainous prices. So it's worth buying this box set just for the miniatures alone, to be perfectly honest. Especially if you want something a little bit different. So let's see what this all looks like when we actually open this thing up and have a look inside. It is very, very heavy. So that's always a nice feeling, when you get your box, you're like, whoa, I'm getting my money's worth here, because this is extremely heavy. So I've only briefly opened this just to have a quick look. So the first thing we've got in here are our sprues. So we've got red sprues for the adventurers, or shall we say the good guys. So there's 3 sets of sprues, and there's a couple of adventurers, 2 or 3 adventurers on each one. And these are using a red plastic, and I find that this red plastic that Games Workshop uses is very, very crisp, and it gives you really, really nice details. I mean, the Rogue Trader in particular has it very, very fine details. So I find that this red plastic seems to give the best details of the push to fit miniatures that I've found. And also these are push to fit, they're not a glue and assembly type miniature. These are push to fit, which is also cool too. We then get the top bad guy on his own sprue. We then get 2 large sprues of all the bad guys, basically the cultists, unsanctioned psychers, all that kind of stuff. There we go. And that's actually a pretty decent amount of variation actually in those as well. It's not like you're getting the same miniature over and over again. There's actually a pretty decent amount of variation in them. We then have a nice piece of artwork, which unfortunately does get a little bit pinched with it being sat in the box and all, which is a shame, but there you go. We then have a bunch of booklets. So here we've got our assembly booklet. And what I found interesting about this, you know, is there's a complete lack of consistency with Games Workshop material in terms of the warnings they give you on these kind of assembly booklets. You know, it says, oh well, you know, make sure you use clips to clip stuff off and all this kind of stuff, and it puts age restrictions on some, but it doesn't do it on others, and it's a little weird. And in fact, if you read some of the back print on the back of these booklets, I think it's on it's on this one. This is the background booklet, which is actually really cool. Sort of describes the whole point of the Blackstone fortress, as well as some really nice sort of like, you know, pictures of the adventurers and why they're actually, you know, there and what they're actually doing, which is très cool, I find. You know, it's actually saying, oh well, you know, you shouldn't play Games Workshop stuff if you're less than 16 without adult supervision. And I'm like, you what? It's like, I've been playing 40k since I was 9 years old, for crying out loud. I mean, this is, and there's no way I involved my parents when I was playing. Anyway, I just find it a little strange. They're not targeting the right market in order to get the new guys of the future. You've got to get them when they're young, otherwise you've got no chance. Anyway, so you've got a really nice, cool booklet about the background. Actually, I would read this first, just to, you know, because it really helps, you know, set the scene and tell you what the hell's going on and what it's all about. Which, you know, if you're new to 40k, and I guess you might be, you know, there might be this could be your gateway game into 40k after all. Then, you know, it's a good idea to read that up and you get an idea of what's all going on. It then has a rules booklet. So let's read that first, and that sort of basically describes the basic rules. And then there's a separate one for combat, which describes how the combat actually works in the game as well. Because the combat basically involves like setting up the area and things like that. And the whole point of this game is it gets progressively harder as you go along. It is a game for up to 5 players, but you can play it on your own, so effectively you are in charge of 4 adventurers, and then the system itself actually plays the bad guys who come after you, the chaos guys basically. And it's kind of nice the way that kind of works, because it means you can sort of sit down and play it on your own. If you play with more players, then basically you have to divide up the adventurers between them, and you can play up to 5 players with basically 4 players playing the adventurers and 1 guy playing the bad guys basically. So it's pretty cool in that sense. There's not many solo play games like this around. Certainly there's not many in the Games Workshop range anyway. So this is really kind of nice to actually have. And so if you get a chance on your own a lot of the times because you can't find somebody else to play with, a la me, then that's a good thing. We've got a data sheets booklet. And this basically actually gives you all the data sheets so you can actually play these guys directly in 40k. So you can pull these guys out and play them in 40k, which is kind of cool. So, you know, you could pick them out and play them in 40k. There's a points cost here. And I have to admit that Yana Strayek, who's the road trader at 40 points, is an absolute steal. As is UR025, who's an Iron Man as well. They're an absolute steal of 40 points, I must admit. Then you have the precipice rules, which basically describes, you know, how you arrange things after you've completed the mission and you know, around your stronghold and things like that. It's, you know, they've split it up quite nicely rather than sticking it all in one rule book. We then have a bunch of dice and some of the larger bases as well. We've got all the bases that we need. We then have this special card here, which is a hidden vault envelope. You don't open that until the vault quest has been completed. It's obviously something special in there. We then have a series of cards. We've got a series of threat cards. So you haven't unboxed these things yet. Combat cards. Artifact cards. Initiative cards. Encounter cards. So these dictate basically, you know, who you're facing depending on how the board actually ends up being set up. And then you've got the actual character cards themselves. And also, if you are looking at, say, playing this solo where the bad guys are eventually controlled by the system, there's a guide here in terms of how it, you know, behaves. And you basically roll a dice and it shows you how the guy behaves. It's pretty cool actually, that the way that works. It'd be interesting to see how that turns out in real life. You know, are they going to just do something completely random? But I guess, you know, Chaos guys can do that, right? Now this is a really neat thing. There's some Ziploc bags for storing all the bits and pieces in. And they've got a brand on them as well, which I think is really nice, because I always end up raiding the Ziploc bag section of my kitchen to put all this stuff in to protect it. So it's really nice to actually see that being available from the off. There's then this little sample chapter, you know, about a book about Blackstone Fortress by Darius Hinks, which is kind of a nice little freebie. We then have the heavy bits, which is basically the tiles. So there's basically, you know, as you can see, I think you can see there, there's there's 5 basically sheets of card with all the tiles on it that you'll use to actually play the game. Pretty hefty stuff. And then there's yet more baggies for holding things as well underneath, which is really neat. I really have to say I appreciate that. So there's an awful lot of stuff in here, and it looks like it's a pretty thorough game, well thought out. It's got everything in here that you're going to need to play it. It looks to be of significantly high quality too. The only thing that might bother me a little bit is obviously once you get all of this stuff assembled, you're going to put it back in your box, and there's very little regard given a lot of the time for, well, okay, you got it back in the box, well, how are the miniatures going to sit with everything else? I mean, will they actually sit in the box, for example? So this box in this case is fairly deep, so I don't think we'll have a problem. The miniatures will sit quite nicely standing up in there. But how do you get them in there and keep them relatively protected? You know, it'd be nice to have maybe a little divider or something, you know, once this stuff is you know, all been ready, that they've worked out, oh yeah, you can put the miniatures here and on this thing and it does actually fit. Because sometimes I don't think they actually think about those sorts of things, and you get all the miniatures together and realise, oh wait a minute, they don't actually fit into the box, and then they've got to sit on a shelf or something, and then you end up losing one and then you can't play the game or whatever. So yeah, so those are the things that always worry me with these kinds of games. I always end up basically building dividers inside the boxes for the actual minis to protect them. And in the case of like my Imperial Salt stuff, because the quality of those is high, it's okay, it's improved over time, isn't superb, you know, I've got a little varnish on them to protect them, but perhaps a little thicker varnish than I would do normally on a Citadel miniature that I'm playing with, Shadespire or 40k or whatever. Anyway, so I hope you found that interesting, and I look forward to playing it, and I might do a review of the actual game at a later date. Thanks for watching. If you did like it, please subscribe. I'll catch you next time.